I didn't want to wind up as a body found floating by the ducks, so I figured it might be time to talk some more First Law. Hey, what's up, bookworms and pinks? Mike back today to talk a little First Law by Joe Abercrombie, continuing this reimagining, that's what I'm going to call these re-reviews of this series. Today we're dipping into book number 2 in that original trilogy that, of course, is Before They Are Hanged. Now, yes, I do have 2 editions of the series because that's how dear it is to me. So spoiler alert, guys, this review is going to be highly positive. But, guys, with this one, it was released in 2007, middle book of the trilogy, and I think with this one, Joe really decided to expand his world a little bit. So I think a lot of those gripes that some people might have with the blade itself, I feel like they're fixed here. We're going to kind of talk about why. Now, for me, guys, I want to say I have always read the series back to back to back. When I discovered it, the series was done. So I have recently on the channel said some things that I got some stuff mixed up because I forgot where book 1 ended, where book 2 started. I made a mistake in a weekly update, I think, recently, saying that book 2 introduced Pharaoh. That's not true. Obviously, Pharaoh was in book 1. It was just, again, I mess these things up because I've always read this as one big volume. So it's hard for me to remember these things. So with that said, we'll get that corrected for this one. So no spoilers, guys, for this book. However, I am going to have to mention some of the events maybe that happened in book number 1, The Blade itself, to kind of just establish where our characters are and stuff like that. So I don't feel like it's anything that will kind of break the series for you, but if I do mention those things, I don't want anybody getting mad about that. If you want absolutely to be a First Law virgin when you go into this, I'd say, at least read book 1 before you watch this review. That's what I'll say there. But there will be no spoilers for Before They Are Hanged. But before that, we got to get into what is this book about. Now, Superior Glocta has a problem. How do you defend a city surrounded by enemies and riddled with traitors when your allies can by no means be trusted and your predecessor vanished without a trace? It's enough to make a torturer want to run, if he could even walk without a stick. Now, the Northmen have spilled over to the border of Angland and are spreading fire and death across the frozen country. Crown Prince Ladisla is poised to drive them back and win undying glory. There's only one problem. He commands the worst armed, worst trained, and worst led army in the world. And then Baez, the first of the Magi, is leading a party of bold adventurers on a perilous mission through the ruins of the past. The most hated woman in the South, the most feared man in the North, and the most selfish boy in the Union make a strange alliance, but a deadly one. They might even stand a chance of saving mankind from the Eaters, if they just didn't quite hate each other so much. Ancient secrets will be uncovered, bloody battles will be won and lost, bitter enemies will be forgiven, but not before they are hanged. Guys, that takes us back to 2007, the middle book of the First Law trilogy, Before They Are Hanged. Now, with this, guys, when we get into what makes it good or bad, right away, the good, guys, character growth. I'm going to talk about this a little more than I did the last one. I just told you about characters. Now, this one, it's character growth because he takes those already great characters that he set up and he just kind of expands on each one of those POV characters in this book. With West, I think where you kind of left off with the Blade itself, you felt like he was kind of irredeemable. And in this book, I feel like in some way, it might still be debatable, but in some way it feels like he might have done that with this lead up to earning the nickname of Furious, let's put it that way. Then you got Dogman, who's got to come to terms with now being allies with the Union in this whole battle that's going on in the North. So you got those two kind of playing off of each other. That's always something I love to see, is when you're different POV characters meet each other for the first time, and you kind of see their difference in personalities, because the POVs are very much unreliable narrator to just that person in POV. So say you get to see West from Dogman's point of view and vice versa, and you might actually get a new spin on the character or learn more about them. And that's what helps these characters just feel more and more realistic. I love it. And then you got Glocta. Now, Glocta's still doing some quite twisted things, as a torturer will do, but he is actually, he does some things that shows he actually still has some humanity in this book. So if that's something that you were looking for, it might be there. But Glocta will find a way to disappoint you in that regard, but, please you in many, many others. So again, the most compelling character, I think, in all of fantasy is Glocta, and it continues to be greater and greater in this book. And then you got the Fellowship, as I like to call them. Now, this is our traveling party with Logan and Pharaoh and Giselle and Baez. So this is what I kind of dubbed as the Fellowship when I first did those original spoiler reviews way back when. And just because, I think something that people had problem with that first book is you didn't really leave Adua very much. So this, you actually do get to travel with this group. And on the travels, you get to find out more and more about those characters. Now, with Logan and Pharaoh, you're trying to find out, can these two make like this relationship, if that's what you want to call it? Can they make that work? Can they keep their anger, their alternate personality kind of thing in check? Can they do that while they try to balance what's going on in this quest? Meanwhile trying to bond with the other people in this party. Now, I gotta say, guys, Giselle in this book, without a doubt, this is the best character arc in this book. You think about where Giselle ended the blade itself and where he ends before they are hanged. Completely different character. And you know what? It's not forced. It feels natural. And I love kind of the bonding moments between him and Logan. It's actually quite good. It is. But this is where Giselle became one of my favorite characters in this entire universe. I think that he really has he takes the next step in this second book and becomes a character that I love. So it's one of those things, you think back to book one where I said, he's going to give you these unlikable characters that you just want to punch in the face, or Giselle's nice square chin, and he's going to make you root for them. So he does that here. I am definitely rooting for Giselle in this book. I think he has a great, great arc. Now, there are also some side characters. That's some things that, that aren't POV characters that are really, really good. Obviously, Baez, there's some layers there we'll get into. But this is the introduction of Nakoma Casca, which is one of my favorite characters within this whole universe that he's created here. And this is our introduction to him. So you just get kind of a taste of him here. But it's a very memorable taste. He does have some moments that will make you see, like, okay, maybe you guys will be able to see why I like him so much. But I don't want to sway your decision on that. But I just know that he's usually universally pretty much liked through the fandom. So I'll give you the okay to go ahead and like that character if you want. But all I'll say is, pirate, maybe you shouldn't trust him. That's all I will put out there. So, it's one of those things that with this series, guys, is, there's lots of characters I love. Doesn't mean that they do good things, So, Nakoma Casca, one of my favorites. Next, I got to talk about the world. Again, where I said, you kind of felt like you were stuck in just Adua and maybe like some generic places in the north in the last book. With this one, you get to see more of the circle of the world, and you get to see all of these other places. Now, it's just a scrape of the surface of what you would get much more in the standalone books, which maybe we'll talk about someday. I don't know. But, you get to see Dagoska, which is right there on the border of Gurkle. You get to see, when you go out for the Fellowship, you get to see them travel to new locations like the Old Empire or the Edge of the World, all these things. And it just kind of makes the world feel bigger. That's something that I think that a lot of people were wanting. So if you want your quest, your traveling party, you're going to get it in this book, and I think you're going to like it. But I love the way that Joe continues to expand his lore in this book. The lore, you get juicy little nuggets about Baez's past. And that's something I think that everyone kind of had the right, because when he first shows up in the blade itself, you think you know what he's all about. And then there was that whole tournament in book number one. You're like, maybe this isn't the Gandalf character that I assumed that he was. So Joe is very good at deconstructing those beliefs that you have of traditional fantasy. And with Baez, it's one of the best deconstructions of the white wizard kind of character that you've probably not seen a lot before. So with Baez, there's still many mysteries to come here. But you get to learn about Glustrode and Juvids and deities and things like that. You get to learn about Pharaoh's, her ancestry, kind of what she might have done in Gurkle. And a little more about why she's quite like she is. You get to learn about the art and the other side, which is pretty much the magic system here. That stuff I always found very, very interesting. But basically, I feel like everything that readers wanted in book one do happen here. It does feel like a more complete, I would say maybe a more complete book, as much as more of what I think fantasy fans would expect with their fantasy, because you got your traveling party, you got your background, you got your lore build, you got your world, all these things that I think modern fantasy readers will expect without it feeling like a traditional fantasy book. So I think, again, a lot of those complaints that people might have of book one, they don't really go anywhere. I think that number one thing right there is answered, and he continues to build on the things that he presented in the first book that were great, like the characters. So again, if you're wanting some character arcs, guys, this one has it from beginning to end of this book. The characters are all different. by the end of it. And, just traveling together, I feel like it's the best way to get to know some characters. And he does that great with a traveling party in this book. So what's not so great? No book is perfect, right? Let's talk about some things that might bother you. Now, I want to say that these aren't things that bother me, but they might bother you a little bit, so I feel like I got to bring them up. The characters are split up in this book, which is quite common, I think, for a middle book in a series. You always you establish all your characters, and you split them up, then you bring them back for the final act, right? So with this one, I feel like they are very much separated. 3 different sections, in the north, in the south, and then, of course, the traveling party. I feel like, I would love to see Glocta interacting with Logan. I'd love to see Wes talking with Pharaoh and things like that. But again, all 3 of these different stories are so strong that I never feel like, okay, well, it would be better if this character was here. Now, you do want those things. I'm never going to lie. I want Glocta interacting with all these people. So separating that way might frustrate some people. Just know the payoff's going to be worth it there. You will see a lot of reunions, but with this one, I do feel like that might be something that bugs people a little bit. I think the resolution of the quest in this one might leave some people wanting. Let's just put it that way. I know that when people are doing their read along on my Discord right now, there are a lot of people quite frustrated with how that quest ends and how this book ends overall. But all I gotta say, guys, is trust the process. Just trust the process, okay? It is book 2 of 3. It is written as one story. So just trust the process. It's going to be worth it. Trust me there. And then I think the last thing is just that there's a lot of questions still unanswered, and that kind of falls in what I just said. Trust the process. These things are going to be answered. He's not going to leave you hanging on a lot of these things. So don't worry about that. But I can see how that will frustrate some people if they feel like they need to have their beginning, middle, and end each book. Again, like I've said, this is very much one story that was just divided into 3 volumes, maybe for printing purposes or whatever. It is very much one book, guys. So if you don't have your answers yet, just wait. Just wait. They might be coming. More than likely, they are coming. We'll talk about that some other time. You can watch the spoiler review if you want, guys, where I talk about a lot of those things in detail, if that is what you are looking for. Old video. But, I always tell people those old videos, because the production quality is so bad, the sound's still quite fine. So you can just minimize the screen, listen to me, maybe that'll be better for you. But guys, let's move along to why I think you should read it. I mean, I think if you liked book 1, but you didn't love it, I think this might be more of what you're looking for. It might be more of what modern fantasy readers want, because you do have those key things that I spoke of earlier. Those are going to be things that you're looking for. Then I think this will be more for you. If you really like book 1, I think it's full speed ahead. You're going to love what he does here, because he does really improve on just about everything. And the thing to remember with this story, like I said, it is one story divided into 3 volumes. So if you're still just waiting for those questions to be answered, look, you're going to get some questions from book number 1 answered. Just like in book 3, you're going to get some questions from book number 2 answered. That's just how the process works here. So just stick with it. But I do think that if this book isn't really working for you, I mean, I've told everybody, hey, it feels weird to tell you to try at least 2 books in a trilogy, because at that point it's like, well, it's too far to go back now. I will say that if you finish book 2 and it's still just not working for you, I don't see anything in book 3 that's going to really change. I mean, there's lots of stuff that you have no idea what's coming, but I'm saying this one I feel like is more indicative of what this series is than that first book is, because I feel like this is when Joe really hit his stride, so to speak, as an author. So I don't know, that's kind of depend on you. So again, guys, plot twists, shocking character deaths, building up the lore, and the political intrigue is up there with some of the best that I've ever read in fantasy. You're going to be seeing all kinds of backroom stuff that will surprise you. And if you're in for just major character growth, guys, this is one of the best series out there. And it really, really started with this book. So I think, like I said, I feel like the first one introduced some great characters, and this one really made them amazing characters because of just how he really develops them through conversation and through the eyes of the other POV characters. I think that helps quite a bit. So some final thoughts on Before They Are Hanged here. Like, this is the rare occasion where a trilogy doesn't suffer from middle book syndrome. Most fantasy trilogies, you hear everybody talk about middle book syndrome. There's some fluff in there, so they could get a trilogy. There's some things where, hey, this character just disappeared for too long. I've said he splits the characters up in this, but it's perfectly paced. I never once am like, God, I'd really like to know what's going on with West and Dogman up in the north. I never feel like that. I always feel like I know where everyone is. It's perfectly balanced, and I feel like everything is kind of handled exactly the way that it should be. So not only, guys, I mean, look, I love The Blade itself, but this is better. This is a better book. I feel like his dialogue's better. I feel like the world feels bigger, and I feel like the characters have considerable growth. That's all you can ask for when you're reading a series, is that it improves along the way. And again, I didn't have very many problems with The Blade itself, but this is a better book, I think. So if you really, really like book 1, I think you're going to absolutely adore book 2 here. So I think, like I said, Blade itself, great. Before They Were Hanged, even better. And if you want me to get into more detail, guys, like I said, I've got those old spoiler reviews if you want to hear me talk in depth about those things. So I feel like there's only so much that you can say when it comes to a spoiler-free review, and it's hard for me not to say these things that I really, really love. But this book just continued to just completely blow me away. The first time I read it, I thought, okay, well, I know what I'm in for now, so I know what's going to happen here. And you did not. There was all kinds of crazy twists and stuff. But again, for me, this was the first world outside of A Song of Ice and Fire where I felt like the politics were just so good to read, because a lot of books, the politics can kind of drag you down a little bit. Everything kind of tries to mimic like the Council of Elrond. It doesn't always work as well as Tolkien did it, and it can kind of drag some people down to where they're like, I don't want to read what I would be listening or watching on C-SPAN. That's not anything I want to read. With this, I feel like the political stuff is just every bit as good as the action scenes in here, which the action scenes are really, really great too. So again, guys, everything really I think that you're looking for in modern fantasy, you are going to find here, and I hope that you guys do dig it. I want you guys to drop in the comments to let me know what you thought about this book, and we will be talking about The Last Argument of Kings next month, which is I'll go ahead and let you know, my favorite book in this trilogy. I feel like each one got better than the previous ones, and there is so much craziness coming. If you're experiencing it for the first time, I am super jealous. I wish that I could wipe it from my memory and experience this again for the first time, because I love this world, I love these characters, and I just absolutely adore this story, and it just got better with this book. So guys, drop in the comments, let me know what you thought, and I will talk to you there.